I'm Dr. Andrea Pennington. I'm an integrative physician, acupuncturist, documentary filmmaker, best-selling author, and international speaker. I help doctors, therapists, coaches, speakers, and authors share their message with the world in the areas of resilience, trauma healing, and self-love. It's all part of my mission to elevate the level of consciousness in our world. After living for years, hiding depression and anxiety, I know how isolated and sickening it feels to be trapped, not living life aligned with your authentic self. As I've shared in my books and TED Talks, music saved my life and set me free from depression. And through a near-death experience and sacred plant medicine ceremonies, I reconnected with my soul and got a whole new vision to live for. Now I combine my media communication experience with my professional expertise in neurofeedback, meditation, and holistic healing in films, on stages, TV shows, and podcasts, in boardrooms and retreat centers around the world. My books, life writing programs, and brand mentoring academy are all designed to empower you to transform, heal, and thrive in business, love, and life. Hello, hello, beautiful soul. What a joy to connect with you on this fine Friday here from the south of France. Welcome. Super excited to dive into today's topic. Today's topic is Untwist Your Thinking, and I'm going to inspire you to take on one belief that could transform your life. That is the big, bold claim. And I promise you that if you stick with me, you will actually get a hint of this transformation. And now is the perfect time, as we are rounding out the year of 2021, as we are approaching this magical portal of 12/12, just up to 12/21, there's all sorts of mystical things that will allow you to tap into the highest version of yourself. Does that sound fantastical? Does that sound whimsical or weird? Well, stick with me. I am committed to you truly finding and connecting to your greatness, to your authentic self. All right? So the topic today is Untwist Your Thinking, one belief that can transform your life. And a lot of times when we talk about getting rid of limiting beliefs or fears that block our success, our abundance, love for ourselves, and relationships with others, in therapy, we can maybe face these fears one by one and have a lot of success. That may take a lot of time. Or guess what? We could go directly to the root cause of those fears and those behaviors. And if we change the core belief that holds all of those in place, we could break free. We could break free from fear and mental blocks. Does that sound good? Well, please feel free to type in the chat. What are you looking to get rid of, to let go of, to surrender and move on and be free from in 2021 and beyond? So very good to see you, Anthony and Trevor. Thank you for tuning in. Lovely to have you. So what I'm talking about now is transforming the beliefs and the behaviors that trip you up in life. I always start with myself, so don't worry, you're not alone in all of this. When I say that there's this one belief that will transform your life, I'm saying that adopting this belief is actually like installing a new operating system for your life. Well, actually, it's really more about installing a belief that will restore your factory presets, like what you came in to life with before the programming of this life. And so I want you to pick maybe one issue that you're dealing with. That could be imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination. Maybe, like me, you had a little bit of people-pleasing and codependency, or self-sabotage, self-doubt, or a lack of self-love. Are any of those things that you're still kind of struggling with or you want to move beyond? Then I want you to start thinking about that. Because whichever one of these limiting beliefs or behavior patterns that you're aware of, what we're going to get at today is what holds them in place. Like I could just tell you, oh, you are worthy of love. But if you don't believe those words because there is a core belief holding up this feeling that I'm not enough, then you won't actually shine. Doesn't matter what I give you or do to you, right? Or what the external world does. Anybody else out there get, I don't know, flattery or compliments and you just can't take it on? That's because there's a core belief holding it up that makes you feel that you're not worthy of that. So in other words, what we're talking about, these core beliefs that are underneath our behaviors and our fears and our blocks, underneath them is a core belief about who you are and what you deserve. Okay? So hopefully you have one in mind. What I want to do is give you a little visual here. How about this? All right, so let's say that you have one of these core beliefs like imposter syndrome. Well, what is underneath imposter syndrome is typically the belief that I'm not enough. If you've got imposter syndrome, it doesn't matter how shiny your resume is or all of the accomplishments or your training, there's this core feeling that someone's going to find out that I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not well-researched enough. I don't have enough experience. Anybody else relate to that, or am I the only one? Okay, you don't have to raise your hand. It's all good. So the next belief that you might want to get rid of, or a behavioral pattern, is this perfectionism. Do you find yourself tweaking a project ad infinitum and maybe not even launching it because you're like, it's just not good enough yet? Well, underneath that behavior is this belief that I might be judged or I will be rejected if I put my stuff out there. And so we try to be as perfect as we can. The next one is procrastination. Anybody else out there find yourself doing all sorts of things when you know there's something you need to be doing? For me, it's housework. I don't like cleaning the house. So if you ever catch me like cleaning out the closet or, doing the dishes or scrubbing the walls, it's because I'm procrastinating. All right. You can type in the chat, what is your procrastination, distraction thing? But underneath procrastination is typically this unspoken belief. It's generally an unconscious one, but some of us are aware. I know if I put this out there, if I do this, I might mess it up or it won't be good enough, right? That's what's under procrastination. The other behavioral pattern that we can get into is codependence. If you saw my last video, then you know that codependence is this condition where we have this compulsive need to either check on others, make sure other people are doing well, and not check on ourselves. We don't value ourselves unless we get it reflected from somebody else. In codependence, we can take the temperature of a room and we want to make sure everyone is okay. Sometimes in codependence, we will, keep our voice silent. We'll go along with other people. So underneath that behavior pattern of codependency is this sense that I'm not important or I'm not as important as other people. So think about some of the behaviors that you get into that might be blocking you from your full expression in life, and let me know if any of these relate to you. Another one of these behavior patterns is self-sabotage. Has anybody ever experienced that, where things are going pretty cool in your life, and then you're like, oh no, it's too good to be true, and then you find yourself sabotaging? The first time that I saw this was when I was treating alcohol addiction and eating disorders, and we had a very lovely holistic program, and sometimes patients would get through to a certain point, and instead of going on and really thriving, they'd sabotage. They'd either find a new addiction or some new habit or new compulsive thing. And sometimes in relationships, I know I was guilty of this. In the very, 20 years ago, in the very beginning of a relationship, if it was too good, I'd be like, wait, I don't know what to do with all this love and attention. And I would sabotage. And underneath that behavior of self-sabotage, whatever flavor it takes on for you, underneath that is this belief, again, often unspoken and unconscious, this belief that I can't handle it. I can't handle whatever this situation is. We get overwhelmed. We self-sabotage, right? Now, what other beliefs do you think could be holding some of these up? Of course, The I'm not enough can go in multiple places, that belief. If you don't feel like you're enough, you will also self-sabotage. If you don't feel that you are enough or believe that you're worthy, that might lead to codependency. Some of these are, they exist in multiple. All right, so what about self-abuse or self-hatred? For those of us that have these voices within us, the inner critic that brings you down, that tears you down, that's always telling you you're not enough, or what about this, and any of that self-hatred or self-abuse, underneath it is this belief that I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm defective, I'm somehow unlovable. All right? Any of this resonating with any of you? Any of these patterns in your life? I know, you don't have to raise your hand. I've already said that, haven't I? So, thank you, Karina, for typing in that. Dr. Fertila says, some of your procrastination things are TikTok and checking messages. Girl, TikTok can be like going down the rabbit hole. You're just like, oh, I'll just watch one more. Yeah, so good. So now that we know some of these behaviors or these patterns that we're in that we want to go beyond, I want you to challenge some of those statements. So if I go back to where we just were. All right, so let's say that I am the one who's feeling not good enough. If that's one of yours, I want you to ask, who? Who is it that is not good enough? And is that who I really am? Oftentimes you ask the question, when was the first time you felt that way? You might be able to trace this back to a time when you were in school. Maybe you got something wrong. One of the teachers called you out or somebody teased you. And that is where that belief first got impressed upon you. Again, unconsciously. But there's something that our developing ego takes on where we feel like I'm not good enough, or I need to be perfect, I need to do better. I'm not okay just as I am. So once you've identified the behavior that you want to untwist and unravel, the question you ask is, am I still the infant who broke my mother's china and therefore I'm a bad or defective person? Am I still the toddler who wet the bed or whatever thing you might have done? Am I still that primary school kid who was dyslexic and messed up with my ABCs? You might still be dyslexic, but you're not that kid with that limited development, intellectual and personal development. Am I still that snotty, rebellious teenager that used to sneak out at night and stole her mom's car? That was me. No, even though I did those things, I am not that person today. And even the person that did those things, that's not who we really are. Because obviously, if I was acting from my authentic self, I most likely wouldn't have been sneaking out past curfew. And even if some of these behaviors got started in your early adulthood, you could ask, am I still that 20-something-year-old who did whatever? Did poorly at university? Because some of these beliefs, they've been lingering. Am I still that 30-something who whatever? All right? The question to ask is that still who you are? Because if you think that that's who you are, then that means that you have collapsed your identity with the ego. And the ego is not who you are. The ego is a construct. When we incarnate, we have this little human apparatus that's called an ego, and it develops maybe from the time we're in the womb, where we're learning cues of safety and danger. And this ego, this sense of self-identity, is created in response to our environment. And so we learn how to adapt and get along in our family, then in our school, then in the outside world. But the ego is not your whole self, your true self. You get what I'm saying? So if you are still feeling like you are this little 13-year-old or whatever, then that means that you have collapsed your identity. You've become too attached to that ego identity. And if you have done that, consider this your wake-up call. That's not who you are. Who you are is your real self, your essential self, the authentic self. That is your spiritual essence. You are a spiritual being, a little droplet of God consciousness in this human form for a human existence for a bit of time. But who you are really is an eternal being, an eternal soul. And your identity in this life is not limited to who you've been or what you've done. Of course, this begs the question, do you believe in the concept of, being able to be rehabilitated? Now, of course you do, because you made mistakes as a toddler. Like, we've all done something, you just think back to the children you have or the children you've seen. Everyone has scribbled on the wall when they shouldn't have, or fallen off of a bike, or made some silly mistake. But we're not limited by the mistakes of the past. So there's some cleanup that we have to do, and that's why you're here. So we could just pick off these fears and these beliefs one by one, and then start to change the programs in your subconscious mind, start to feed in positive affirmations, and then train your brain and your mind to create new pathways, new grooves and connections. But even with all of that great work, it's still somewhat of a superficial fix, especially if you change one thing on the surface, but underneath, you're still running this program, this belief that you're just some puny little human living out your puny little existence, because that's not true. And many of these parts of us that are carrying these beliefs, it's hidden. They're unconscious shadow beliefs. So, where does that leave us? Well, you are on the path of awakening. Yay! You are on the path of ascending or becoming who you really are. And I don't know, for how many of you is that a little bit scary? I mean, I get it. To realize that what has been holding you back and realizing that the solution is inside you is a little bit of a mind fuck, to be honest. Because the implications of taking on this one belief that could transform your life means that you can no longer blame anyone. You can't blame the economy, your parents, the president, a virus. You can't even blame your traumas once you are awake to what they are and what they did. I mean, these things do have a real impact, and they did in the past. But as soon as you wake up, the hold on you gets loosened a little bit. The hold of the past and all of these past beliefs that you've been living out for, some of us, decades. So this means as you start to transform, everything around you is going to have to transform. Like, literally. And maybe even the people that you hang out with. Because a lot of our relationships just reinforce our belief system. If you hang out with people who just reinforce your own codependency, it makes it a lot more difficult to change, even if you've had an awakening moment where you realize, wait a minute, I am a divine being with my own soul's destiny to live out, and it's not to be a doormat, right? And so, what do we add into this new awareness? Well, if you don't already have a meditation practice, I suggest you begin. Now is a perfect time to start. And if you're already an experienced meditator, then as you go within, you can just go within with this question in mind. Ask, what is holding me back from living the fullness of my destiny? What is holding me back from letting go of these behaviors? You could ask, am I ready to go beyond these fears and beliefs? Am I ready to embrace my authentic self? So these could be questions, or they could be affirmations. Really tune in. If you get that, yes, I'm ready to level up and become the best version of me possible, then you could affirm, I am willing to release my fear. I am ready to give up my attachment to the ego identity. I am choosing to surrender the old programming. I am ready to live as my authentic self. Of course, you can come up with your own affirmations as they fit for you. I am willing to receive the power to live free. Is any of this resonating with you yet? So part of the healing process, once we've identified these core beliefs that are lingering in the subconscious, we can connect to the parts of us that held those beliefs. So I wish that it could happen all at once. I had a near-death experience in 2005 where I left my body and I was melded into the oneness, this divine oneness. And I saw exactly why I was depressed. And I saw a future vision that I could choose. And when I chose it and I came back into my body, the depression was gone, the anxiety was gone. And I felt love for myself for the very first time. And a lot of things in my life changed from 2005 forward. And here we are in 2021. I have still found more and more things that were these entrenched beliefs since my childhood that I didn't even know were there. And that is because the psyche is quite vast, and there are often these parts of ourselves that are exiled. They're literally living in the shadow. And that was the case with me. Now, in addition to meditation, breath work, going on shamanic retreats, partaking of sacred earth medicine ceremonies, these things have helped me open up the subconscious and to work with this material. And when I say that we have to connect with these parts, well, what happens if one of the parts of you is pre-verbal, like a toddler or an infant? So on Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, I lead the Real Self-Love Live, and I lead a guided meditation where we can contact the inner child or the inner critic or any other part of you. And sometimes that you can invite that wounded part of you or that exiled part to have a dialogue with you that comes up in your meditation or comes up when you're doing journaling. For me, I had an experience this year after my mother passed away where I was on a sacred journey with plant medicine, and I saw this vision of me as a baby before I had language, so it was pre-verbal. So I'm making this distinction because, of course, if there's something that happened on the playground and I got bullied or teased, I might have the words that stick in my mind, like, don't do this, like, don't play sports, or, don't try this. But for a baby that's pre-verbal, there's just a sensation of these sort of situations equal danger, and these situations equal safety. So in this plant medicine ceremony, I saw myself as a tiny little baby, and I could pick up the vibe that was going on in the household, which was not a pleasant vibe. It was quite toxic. This was before my parents got divorced. And as I tuned into this tender little baby, I understood that I had carried this belief that all the discord was my fault. Now, I'm 51. I have never had this critical belief that I was aware of that it's all my fault. But in that moment, I could feel it. I'm like, oh my God, yes. That core belief has tainted so much of my life experience without me even knowing it. And so that's why I invite you to do some of the journaling, the breath work, the guided meditations that we lead, because your subconscious is a treasure trove of material. It's not just the basic stuff that you know of. There can often be things that are out of our conscious awareness that we can go beyond. we can absolutely go beyond. And this is about returning to an awareness of who you really are. And what that means is asking the question, who am I really? Am I this faulty, defective person who has to aim for perfection? Or am I this pure being that is worthy of love, that is worthy of making mistakes, that has a contribution to make to the world? Because when we consciously decide that we want to go beyond fear and doubt, then you may need to purge and release. Whether you're releasing something physically from your environment, or you're getting rid of certain relationships because they no longer match energetically to who you are. It may be a symbolic shedding. I've known people to finally delete a person's phone number or photos or an object in the house because of what it represented symbolically. Clearing your space. You might go on a fast. You might write a letter to the person or to yourself and then burn it so that you're symbolically letting that energy go. And of course, as things are coming up from the subconscious, you may notice that there are symptoms. Some people feel pain. Sometimes there's a flare-up of an illness, and it's because that energy is moving. Our bodies are mirrors for the subconscious mind. And when there's material that's been in the subconscious that you have not tended to, you've not been willing to face, it may have erupted in anxiety, depression, insomnia. It may have erupted in the body as a physical pain syndrome, fibromyalgia, what have you, autoimmune conditions. And you might have acted on the emotional and psychic pain by acting out with compulsive behaviors like addiction and eating or shopping or sex. And so when you finally are letting this stuff be released, you may notice that there are symptoms, and it is not going to last forever, so please don't freak out. Just know that you are letting go of, you are shedding, you are releasing this old energy and these patterns. And you can bid it farewell. Like literally say, thank you, I got the message. Maybe you want to do some forgiveness work if you need to forgive yourself. If you did something to someone else and you want to ask forgiveness, there's a great forgiveness meditation that I have online. Because you can do it energetically. Sometimes the people that we've hurt are not here anymore, so we can't really make a direct amends, but you can do that energetically. And the good news about all of this is that you are stepping up. You are stepping up and into your sovereignty, your ability to act in the now with present conscious awareness instead of being reactive based on the programs of the past. So, once you do that, you now get to choose. How will you reign in your queendom or kingdom? Like these are the promises that we can expect as we do this great recovery work. Ultimately, we are here to embody the highest and the best version of our authentic self. And that is giving yourself permission to evolve and to grow and to heal. And don't worry, you're going to keep rising. You'll get to one level, and then you may find some other stuff to purge, and then you step it up to the next level. And don't worry if your outside world takes a little bit of time to catch up to what's going on with you internally. We are energetic beings, and this 3D world is kind of dense and heavy. So the things that happen to us energetically in our minds, in our awareness, it may take a little bit of time for the outside world to catch up with that. But ultimately, what you are called to do is just keep going. Keep affirming this vision that you're holding. Maintain your intention to embody the highest version of yourself. Does this make sense? The chat has gone quiet. So I would invite you, if you haven't already seen some of the stuff on my website, you will find that there are resources there. It's pretty easy. It's AndreaPennington.com. You will find that there are resources there that will help you. All right? So let's recap. So what we've talked about so far are the limiting beliefs, the fears, the behavioral patterns, the emotional reactions, and the compulsive dramas. All of those have been perpetually generated by subconscious beliefs. They are the programs that got installed earlier in your life. Now, whether your problem has been anxiety, depression, codependency, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, procrastination, self-sabotage, low self-confidence, or even self-hatred, those are superficial. Underneath that, there are core beliefs that held those feelings, those behaviors, those actions in place. And those core beliefs are always about who you are and what you think you deserve. So when we do this meditation and journaling and go within and ask, purging however we need to, and then envisioning, who do I really intend to be in this life? As we make contact with the authentic self, you will start to see or feel these nudges, this intuition of where you were meant to be. So just to recap, some of these behaviors that we want to get beyond means we need to look at the beliefs that hold them up. So your belief that I'm not enough could lead to imposter syndrome. Well, I'm not enough could lead to all of them. But with perfectionism, there's also this sense that if I put this out there, I'll be judged. If I do that, I might be rejected. So then we ask ourselves, with each of these beliefs, we ask, is it true that I'm not enough? Is it true that I'll be rejected? And ask, who? Who is it that would be rejected? Can you actually be rejected? At the most fundamental level of who you really are, your soul, essence, you cannot be rejected because we are all connected. We are one. If procrastination has been your thing, there might be this belief of, I'm going to mess it up, or it's not good enough, and that's why you don't put stuff out there. So you ask, is it true? And actually, would it kill me if I did mess up? Because we're always learning and growing. And again, when you tune in and you start to reconnect with your authentic self, isn't it okay if you make a few mistakes and learn along the way? As long as you make a commitment to not keep repeating the ones that you can avoid. And what about codependence? Do you have this fundamental belief that you're not as important as other people? Or maybe there's a different belief, so just write that down. How about self-sabotage? Underneath that is often this belief that I can't handle it, this is too much, this is overwhelming, and so we sabotage. And with self-hatred and self-abuse, a lack of self-love, underneath that is often this, you may not think it in words, it may be just a feeling. Does it feel true that you've ever felt like, I'm just bad, I am defective, I am unlovable? If that's the case, then I invite you to do some of this work. If you visit my website, AndreaPennington.com, you'll find that there is a link to the 3 keys to become the hero of your life. This is a free life writing mini course that includes journal prompts and guided meditations. You can also join us in the Hero Collective, which is my new 12-month group coaching program. We go over an entire year at really getting into the subconscious mind, facing your shadow in a safe space, doing these journal prompts, and also adding in the top 10 traits of resilience. So through the course of an entire year, you can heal from trauma, rebuild self-love, and reinforce these top 10 traits of highly resilient people. So if you visit AndreaPennington.com, you'll find the free programs and a link to the Hero Collective. The Hero Collective is only $8 a month, and if money is an issue, we have scholarships available. So no one will be turned away based on price. We meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month for that program. So in just a couple of weeks, we will get together again, and there's lots and lots of material, as well as guest luminaries who will be teaching in that program. So my friends, I have been talking for 34 minutes straight. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you, Abby, for saying it all makes sense. And Marlise, yes. And yes, Sakia, the question, is it true that this would kill me if I did it? That is a great question to ask when you're in that perfectionistic, fearful state. Thank you, Love XPC. Glad to know that this has been an inspiration. And very good to see you, Laura Ann, part of our Hero Collective. Wonderful. to have our peeps here. Has this stirred up anything inside of you? Do you have questions? Please feel free to type them in the chat. And if you are watching on the replay, you can also comment in the chat. Just type in #replay and I will be sure to respond to your comments. So my friends, I am hopeful that this has enlightened some of you. You know, it's given you a new way to look at some of these behaviors and what holds them up. And hopefully it's also shown you why certain things in the past haven't worked for you, like just doing affirmations or the fake it till you make it. Like, we have to get to an understanding of who we really are on the deepest level, because who you are dictates how you behave and what you tolerate for yourself and for others. So glad that this has been helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very good to know that this is on point. Thank you, Kaya, who's also in our Hero Collective. So grateful for you and your presence. And thank you, Dr. Corina. Grateful to have you here as well. And Gurpreet, yes, watch the replay so that you can get back to the beginning and find out all the good stuff that we have worked on. You are so welcome. And so another question that has come in from Love XPCX Games: how to fulfill one's true potential? Well, I personally feel that the first thing you have to do is know your true self. Getting to know your authentic self, which you can do with the help of this book, The Real Self-Love Handbook. It's also an audiobook, or join us in the Hero Collective. First, when you start to tune in to who you really are, not who you were programmed to be by friends and society and your parents and the media, when you find that connection to your authentic self, you will start to have feelings or nudges, or things will become obvious to you of where you are meant to go in life. And I believe that for myself and most of the clients that I work with, the way that we achieve our true potential is getting rid of any of the blocks or hindrances that allow us to fully express ourselves. So asking these questions, doing the guided meditations and the journal work, and literally just connecting with the divine and your higher self and asking. You know, for some of these things, like, if it's hard for you to not be in that people-pleasing mode, then ask for help. Ask the divine. Ask your higher self. Ask your angels, your guides, like, Lord, help me. You know, we can actually ask for help. That's what I'd suggest. So Dahlia asks, how do you let other people know that their codependency is negatively affecting you? Well, that is all about boundaries. So, for example, if someone is, being codependent, depending on what that behavior is, then I would just let them know. So Dahlia says, what if a loved one, like a parent, is codependent and that's causing a problem emotionally or financially? Well, Dahlia, it's the same thing, the boundaries. So one of the ways you could say that is, when you always call on me to help you get out of a jam financially, it makes me feel like you just think I'm a bank account, and it puts stress on me. So then you can set a limit. You can either tell them, you know what, call our brother, call the banker, maybe you should create a savings plan, or you can just say, look, I'm done with my giving at this point. Setting boundaries can be part of the scariest thing, especially with a codependent, because if they've been codependent on you, you've been complicit in it at some level, because if it means that you haven't set firm boundaries in the past, or you haven't said no in the past. So it might feel very scary in the beginning, because it typically brings up this feeling like, well, does this mean I'm like a jerk? I'm an ass if I don't help out my family or my friends like I always did? But if it's causing you harm, then you just have to say no. And for some of us, that means no contact. Some of us have literally had to go no contact with certain people, including family members. For some people, it's like, it's not just a divorce that married couples get. You can kind of do that with other people. That's the most extreme boundary. But the first thing is communicating that when you do this, I feel that, it makes me feel this, and so I'm now asking for, and that's the formula. And so thank you for joining on LinkedIn. Sorry that you entered late. Well, I will suggest that you hit the replay button, because at the very top of the hour, I talk about self-love and self-confidence, and how to solve all of it. So the topic of our talk was the one belief that will transform your life. And that one belief is knowing that you are enough, you are lovable, and who you really are is a divine being. You are not the ego. You are not the toddler of the past or the teenager of the past. You are an infinite being with infinite potential to transform. So I definitely look forward to seeing your comments in the replay on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. So my dear friends, this wraps another verbal tea with Andrea, although today I didn't even get to drink because I've been talking. I hope it was helpful. Please join us on Tuesday, December 14th in the Real Self-Love Live. It is totally free. It is a time where I get together on Zoom privately so that you can ask me questions. I will be talking about one of the topics around self-love, resilience, healing trauma, and then I lead a guided meditation where you can contact these parts of yourself to get messages about living up to your true potential and finding self-love and healing and forgiveness. That's on the second Tuesday of the month. So this month it's December 14th at 6 p.m. France time, which is 12 noon Eastern time in the US. It's totally free. You can find it on my website, andreapennington.com. And if you'd like some more ongoing support, then please do join us in the Hero Collective. The Hero Collective is the 12-month membership program where I am leading and guiding you over the course of an entire year. And that will help you with all of the self-love issues, cleaning out the subconscious mind, and building resilience. All right? So my dear friends, it has been such a joy to connect with you again on this Friday. I would love to see you again. So yeah, let's stay in touch. We'll see you in either the Real Self-Love Live or the Hero Collective. Sound good? Awesome. All right, until we meet again, please know you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love, everyone.